Hello everyone and welcome to a new Genshin Impact lore video. Today, I'm going to go over the lore of the Heart of Depth artifact set, which tells the tale of Parzival and the Skipper. I'll also go over their backstories as presented in the Alley Weapons series, Heart's Desire, Tales from the Waves, Serpent Spine, and a few other weapons. So, let's get right into it. Before I get into the stories mentioned in Heart of Depth, I'd of course like to talk about the backstories of the two main characters. The first one I want to talk about is Parzival. Parzival was from a noble family in Mondstadt, back during the aristocracy. The events in this video take place a little before the fall of the aristocracy, placing them at just about 1,000 years ago. Anyways, Parzival was a legitimate heir to his clan, the identity of which is unknown, and was the son of a man named Landrich. Landrich also had two other sons, a legitimate heir named Ingbert and an illegitimate heir named Eberhard. Eberhard in particular is a key player in Parzival's story. When Parzival was young, he was known for being disobedient, and he loved the idea of chivalry. At one point, he had the dream of becoming a phantom thief, and with Eberhard's support, he would do just that. He stole a sword from his own family's vault, that sword being the Alley Flash, and left the house to hide in the streets. During this time, he would roam the streets much like a commoner, and would also use his swordsmanship to rob the nobles of their riches and give their goods to the common people of Mondstadt. He was quite good at these robberies too, and was never caught. At some point, he also acquired the bow known as the Alley Hunter and used it in robberies. Sometimes, he would also sell his goods to a mysterious shopkeeper who collected rare and intriguing items. Besides that, he mostly did it for the common folk, and never really focused on romance or anything like that. However, that changed one night when he was robbing a mansion and noticed a beautiful woman in the window. This woman had eyes as blue as the sapphire gem embedded in the silver cup he had just robbed from the mansion. Admiring her beauty, he climbed up to her window, pried out the gem from the cup, and gave it to her as a gift. The woman's true name is unknown, but she is also called the Blue-Eyed Spear Witch. The witch would fall in love with Parzival, although she would soon become conflicted about this. This was because of the gem he had given her. The gem had the crest of the ruling family on it, and when she was found to have it, she was punished by having her face branded with a criminal's brand. While she was naturally upset with Parzival, she still had feelings for him. They met again once, when she warned that one day she would pay him back for the scars she received as a result of his actions. However, they seemingly never met again after this. Parzival would continue to act as a phantom thief after this, but not for long. Eberhard would eventually deceive Parzival in some way, forcing him to flee Mondstadt and leave his old weapons behind. In truth, Eberhard only encouraged Parzival to become a phantom thief so that he could get him out of the way. He wanted to become the legitimate heir to his clan, and so he decided to take both Parzival and Ingbert out of the picture. Eberhard would then go on to train under the Blue-Eyed Spear Witch in order to learn the art of the polearm. It is unknown exactly when the witch learned the way of the polearm and magic, but her prowess was so great that she was able to see someone's fatal flaws. She constructed the Crescent Pike weapon to take advantage of this ability. Now, as I said, she would eventually take on Eberhard as an apprentice. However, Eberhard didn't want anyone, especially the nobles, to find out that he was learning the art of the polearm. So, one night, when the witch was distracted by the thought of Parzival and how she missed him, Eberhard would kill her. While all of these events were happening, the story of the Skipper and Liyue was also unfolding. The Skipper was the captain of a ship that tracked down and hunted dangerous sea monsters, or Chi, that lived in the ocean. 1,000 years ago, these monsters were a lot more common than they are now. Skipper was determined to challenge the strongest sea monsters he could find, which is why he was in this line of work. He had an obsession with the war trophies he got from defeating the monsters, even using their corpses to adorn his ship. He also fashioned a greatsword known as the Serpent's Spine from the spine of one of the monsters. However, some might say he was a bit too determined in his goal, as his crew feared him more than they admired him. There was one person aboard his ship that he was more tender to, that being his navigator. The navigator was a fair young maiden who sang sea shanties without end, and the skipper was very much likely in love with her. One day though, all of this would fall apart. Skipper and his crew would come across a beast so huge, it was described as making the other monsters they had fought look like ants. Though they fought hard, it was clear that the battle would go to the monster, and it began to swallow the remnants of the crew. As Skipper looked death in the eyes, he continued to fight with all he had. However, right before the monster could tear him apart, the young maiden began singing a sea shanty, which distracted the monster. It then targeted the young maiden instead, dragging her down into the depths below. For one reason or another, the beast would spare the skipper, who ended up falling unconscious after the battle. He would awake aboard a merchant ship, realizing he had lost everything he had. He then swore to avenge the death of the maiden and his crew by slaying the monster once and for all. Now, we have reached the stories of the Heart of Depth artifacts. After losing his crew and the maiden, the skipper's entire personality drastically changed, as he took on a more jovial and carefree personality. Eventually, he would rebuild his crew from the ground up. The skipper with his new crew would continue on his goal of fighting sea monsters, hoping to one day slay the one that killed his crew. However, he never liked to talk about the subject of his thirst for vengeance against the great sea monster, and tended to keep it to himself. There was one person he did talk to about this though, and the two of them would sign a contract that said they would both go into battle against the sea monster together, even at the cost of their lives. This person was of course none other than Parzival. After fleeing Mondstadt as a result of Eberhard's manipulations, he would arrive in Liyue with nothing but a sword known as the Iron Sting and a sapphire blue feather. Like I said, he would eventually join the skipper and his crew aboard his ship. Filled with hatred for his half-brother Eberhard and longing for the blue-eyed spear witch, he became depressed and was rarely sober. He didn't even know that Eberhard had killed the witch, yet he still wished to forget his past and drown his sorrows, which is why he agreed to the skipper's contract. Even though Skipper saw that Parzival was always drunk, he still gave him important tasks, and even made him his first mate. He found time to joke with Parzival, trying to make him feel a bit better about their situations, even once saying, "Well, we are both people without a things to our names, eh?" Both Parzival and the skipper had lost everything they had ever wanted, and had changed drastically from who they once were. This is why they both were not afraid to go into battle against the giant sea monster, even if it meant their deaths. Of course, they would one day face this great beast together. When they found the sea monster, Skipper joked with Parzival one last time, saying that he knew he liked to forget his past, but hoped he still remembered their contract. After that, Parzival would ready his Iron Sting, and Skipper would wield his Serpent's Spine, as the two began to battle the sea monster along with the crew. The skipper's ship never returned to Liyue Harbor, as all of the crew, including Parzival and the skipper, had died in battle. Something would eventually wash up onto the shore though, that being the sapphire blue feather. However, it was now stained red by blood and by the salt of the ocean. Alongside the feather, the corpse of the great sea monster would wash up, covered in slashes from a greatsword, that of course being the skipper's Serpent's Spine. Skipper had fulfilled his promise, and avenged the deaths of his crew and of the fair maiden who he was likely in love with. As for the tragic relationship between Parzival and the Blue-Eyed Spear Witch, it was widely unknown what really happened with them. Due to this, the people of Mondstadt wrote songs of their romance that gave them a happy ending as a motivational tale, as opposed to the much more sorrowful true ending. The stories presented in the Heart of Depth artifact set, and the stories of the characters within it, have grown to be some of my favorites. It shows how two people can go through similar situations, in this case losing everything, and having it affect them in completely different ways. The skipper becomes more carefree after his losses, while Parzival opted to drown his sorrows in alcohol. The story of Parzival is also of course connected to the story of Eberhard, which I will definitely go over in a video soon. I'd love to hear what other stories you want me to cover in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.